about the Battle of the Dots, which was not really resolved until the 1930s, less than 20 years before I learned Braille. Up until that point, we still did not know which of the competing Braille systems would be used. New York Point, so-called American Braille, English Braille, which has gone by various names. But it was not until a very short time before I studied Braille that we even knew which system I was supposed to learn to read. And it's just amazing. I often wish that in some ways the technology now available for things like legal research had been available when I was practicing law. I'm sure I could have done better, but then I think, you know what? None of us has the slightest control over the year or place or circumstances of our birth, and it must be that I was born when I was, where I was, in the great land of opportunity, the United States of America, because it was meant to be.
So was the Battle of the Dots anything like the battle between UEB and eBay back in the early 2000 teens?
It was a whole lot worse because you had, I think for a while, and I can't, maybe the historians here from APH can tell me, but I think there was a time when APH did print some things in New York Point, I think. In American Braille, Helen Keller had to learn American Braille as well as the Braille alphabet that we know. There was a competing system from Britain called Moon Type, which many of you have seen. So it was not just a fierce battle like the UEB, EBAE battle. It was an international cutthroat battle involving states taking sides against each other, even in the United States. And of course, as always, the victims are the children.
Right.
So I'm just really thankful that I was born at such a time that by the time I was ready to learn to read Braille, the battle had been resolved. But it took a long time. And if you read the history, it's very harrowing, it's frightening. Louis Braille's system was recognized for music as superior. That was recognized almost instantly, going back to the 1860s and 1870s, but it wasn't until about 1932 that the Battle of the Dots for literary Braille was resolved.
What was your access to Braille at Agnes Scott when you were in school? Did you have Braille at all?
Oh, we had to create it. We started working a year in advance to try to find out what books I would need, and we had many things recorded, some by very capable prisoners working under the auspices at that time of the National Braille Press. Recording for the Blind was just coming into its own then, but many transcribers helped me out. I have to tell you a little story about the prison Braille taping programs. No offense to anyone, I just think this is a great story, and you're going to have to excuse one word that I'm going to use. But I had a history book that was being recorded, and the first reader was a little uncomfortable with it, and ultimately somebody else finished it, someone who was more comfortable. But it was a long book, and we were in the early stages of European history, and this dear reader said, here we have a map of the Holy Roman Empire, and it doesn't show a hell of a lot. So they took him off the project. Oh, so you tactile graphics people, you know how much we need you. But it's funny that at the time of my freshman year at Agnes Scott, we thought we had all the books lined up, and I got into my Spanish class, intermediate Spanish, and they said, well, here we have this additional book we're going to need, La Civilización Española, which was all in Spanish about all these painters and poets and playwrights. I thought, oh, my Spanish is not that great, I'm going to have it in Braille. So all these wonderful ladies, many of whom did not know Spanish, stepped up and started brailing that book piece by piece for me. Those who didn't know Spanish just brailled it letter by letter, and they became kind friends. They not only brailled the book, they also did many gracious things for me. And again, many of them, I believe, belonged to a temple sisterhood. They were of the Jewish faith, and they discovered that I had developed a fondness for barbecued pork. So they took me out to eat one time, and they said, "We know Karen loves barbecued ribs, and we're going to order some for her." And looking back, I think, oh dear, those ladies maybe ate kosher, maybe had never even sat at a table before where somebody was eating pork, but they so kindly did it for me. I am just thankful for the people who went out of their way time and time again. And then in my senior year at Agnes Scott, when I was taking the advanced French class, again, transcribers from all over the place stepped up to help me to put these literary works into Braille, the ones I couldn't get from England or anywhere else, French plays and all sorts of things. And if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have been in that class, and I wouldn't have heard about Durandal, the sword, and Princeton would have beaten Agnes Scott.
This is Amy Howard, School for the Blind Outreach.
Oh, that was so great. Your talk this morning.
Well, thank you. I would like to know what technology you use now. Do you use a Braille note? Do you use refreshable Braille? Do you use JAWS? Like, what technology do you use now?
Right now,
Like
I have in my house 4 Perkins Braillers, one of which was my first one, purchased in 1955. A rich uncle gave me $100, and that's what it cost for Perkins Braillers then. I have 2 Braille embossers, a 300, 600. I have JAWS and Duxbury with a Windows 11 computer. I have a recording studio upstairs based on a Windows 10 computer, again JAWS, but also a program called Audacity, not to be confused with the sports network called Odyssey, although I listen to that too. I have a satellite radio, a proliferation of other radios which are appreciated and loved, even up here in the mountains where 3 FM stations is about as much as you can get. And then I do have a Blind Shell Classic 2 cell phone, which is the device on which Kevin and Kathy performed surgery this morning after I dropped it. And I have Braille displays. I don't use them much because in my proofreading I feel more comfortable using the embossed copy so I can see the whole page. And the same with the Braille music for keyboard, for example, where I have to be able to see multiple lines easily. Right. But I appreciate Braille displays. I appreciate people who read whole books on Braille displays. Far be it from me to tell anybody how to read Braille. I have my own ideas about which fingers to use, which hand motions, how relaxed the wrist, whether I should stand up and hold the Braille against my stomach, or lie in bed and read it, or prowl around the house and read it. As long as we get people to read it, they can do it with any device they want, and I appreciate all the devices, but those are the technologies I have right now.
Anyone else got anything right now? I have one question. Just Sean Greiner, Aloha Braille.
Right. The one who has, how many embossers in his house?
Yes.
I have 8 embossers in my home.
And he replaced the doors, and they have cores, and so sometimes when he closes the doors, he can talk to his mom, okay, but since she doesn't have hearing anyway, he can talk to her regardless.
Yeah.
Pretty good summary, Max.
And thanks to Randy for all of that noise the machines make. No, my question is really simple. In the early days, you talked about having your first Perkins back in 1950 something.
Yes.
Because you were the first mainstream student, how difficult was it for the students to get used to having that thing going on in the background?
Well, in the early grades, they didn't have it going on in the background because I was writing on a slate.
Oh, goodness,
But you can
that's
still
so
hear
slow.
it. You can still hear it. And I remember one time, the students were taking standardized tests, which were not accessible to me, and the teacher asked me not to write any Braille during that time, but just to sit quietly, because she said, I think the students might have been, or might be, distracted by what she called the little picking noise.
Oh.
You know what? I guess students today would be offended by a situation like that, having to sit idle, but I was willing to do anything within the bounds of religion and morality to be able to stay in public school, and I didn't mind sitting quietly for an hour. So the students were not disturbed by the noise. Later on, I continued to take notes on my slate. I always used thin paper so I could go faster and make less noise. In math class, sometimes for tests, I would use the Brailler, and the students got so used to it that even my brother, who was in class with me, said, well, I see you didn't need your Brailler today. I said, but I did. I used it for the whole test. He said, oh, I didn't even notice. So I think they became able, on the few occasions when we did have to ask them to block out the noise, I think they became able to do that because kids are so adaptable. And I always tried to let them know that I appreciated them. I never wanted to come out saying, or come out swinging, saying, I have to have this, I have to have this. I'd rather say, would the teachers and the students mind if we did it this way? You let me know if it's okay. So they were very accommodating. My classmates were always just wonderful to me. And even on the occasions when they were mean, there were a couple of times in elementary school. I remember one time when they were a little bit mean. It was not life-threatening, they were just mean. But I think that was part of their showing me that they accepted me, because they were mean to everybody else. So why not? And in the neighborhood, I played kickball with the sighted kids routinely. So I have no complaints about what anybody did to me. You have the occasional unkind remark, but that happens to everybody. So I have no tales of victimization to tell you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to jump in there? All right. Well, this will kind of conclude our workshop today. We still have an open bar till 4:30. You help yourself there. We have this room till 5, so there's no rush to go anywhere if you want to stay and congregate. Our headquarters are in Hospitality Suite 220. If you want to meet there afterwards or later on, I imagine someone's going to be there pretty much most of the time throughout the rest of the night. I think a lot of people want to go and have a good time. There's some games in there and things like that. Let's see, was there some things I was supposed to talk about? Jeremy, was there something I was supposed to say?
Get $30 free credit.
There you
That free credit.
If you haven't already done it, everyone here can go to Caesar's Rewards. It's a mile away. It's way over there. And you get $30 free play credit. If you don't have a player's card here, they'll go ahead and they'll give you $25 for getting the player's card. So you'll get $55 of free money to play with if you go to Caesar's Reward. If you already have a player's card, you'll get $30. But that's free money for you if you decide to use that for the casino. So yeah, thank you for reminding me of that. Any other statements I need to make?
Tomorrow morning?
Okay, tomorrow morning, rafting, 8:45, leave departure. Tomorrow night is the play, and 7 is the early bird time. It starts at 8, ends around 10. We have VIP tickets. we get to go backstage. Of course, that's after the show at 10. And we get souvenirs and all that good stuff. That's tomorrow's agenda.
Where do we meet tomorrow morning?
Tomorrow morning, if you're going to the, if you're going rafting, that's a good question. So we're all driving ourselves, but we're kind of trying to like group up. I mean, you don't want to take a bunch of single individuals if you can ride with somebody, right? So Dan has offered, I don't know how many spaces he got. He got 2. You know, we'll get particulars. Kayla got 4. I got like 4. So I guess that'd be the base. We need like 2 more vehicles. We all can kind of pile in, or however that works. Again, Hospitality Suite 220. Let's meet there at like 8:15, 8 o'clock.
Okay.
For the play? Don't sing, deal.
Ma'am?
For the play?
The play is gonna be at 7 p.m. and we also still have to get ourselves there. There's really no need to meet priorhand unless you wanna invite someone in your vehicle. It's only like 2 miles away.
Okay. So just show up.
Yeah.
Okay. And you'll have the tickets.
I'm gonna make sure I get there early. I'm gonna be there early and make sure everything's under control, but if you happen to be not around, you're part of Aloha Braille, so just throw that word out there and we'll be fine. But I plan to be there early tomorrow to make sure everything's smooth and everything, so. Most everyone here is going to that, by the way.
Do you want these or we take them ourselves?
Either way, I can go both ways. I think if you want me to take them.
It's up to you, whatever way, I mean, we can take our own, that's just how you were doing it, yeah.
I'm not sure what they're gonna require, if they need you to personally hand it to them, that's what I don't